It is the 19th of September. I'm Kevin Hoare, and I am here with the other guy.
I
Uh,
am the other guy.
that other guy, not the big guy, which happens to be um, Joe Biden.
No, but
But
I wouldn't mind that 10%.
yeah, no kidding. Actually, I think in some cases he got 50%, but maybe you would not want to necessarily be Joe Biden because, in all honesty, he's in trouble. Like he doesn't really have it anymore. And I thought this meme just absolutely just I thought this is the funniest thing. It captured it perfectly. Let me go ahead and show this. So Joe Biden's mind is like a web browser. There are 19 tabs open, 17 are frozen, and he has no idea where the music is coming
There's a damn video playing and he can't turn the thing off.
from. That's right.
There's an autoplay ad.
Exactly. And every time he clicks on something, it auto plays another ad. And the thing is, he actually looks halfway cognizant in this photo. That doesn't even look as bad as most of the time when he speaks.
He looks like he's actually kind of focused, like he's it's that few minutes of maybe each day where he's maybe alert.
Where they jack him up with some kind of pharmaceutical that gives him a few moments of minor cognition, and then he lapses back into what I saw this morning. I saw him speak. He addressed the UN General Assembly, and he just did nothing but slur his words. He couldn't even read. I mean, you don't sound like you actually mean the thing that you're reading. If you're like, the District of Columbia is struggling to contend with a large surge in criminal activity, and I'm just like, why don't they just have a machine that takes his old voice and just auto reads it, like they do with the bills in the state house and legislature here in Oregon? They just have it read it.
Yeah. It'd be better.
And he could just stand there and smile,
Yeah, DC, we need help from the UN. That's why I'm at the UN today. I'm here at the UN. Members of the UN.
The most ridiculous thing he said today was he said, because he got on the subject of China, and he didn't talk about China being this nefarious actor that's, infiltrating the United States and threatening Taiwan and, in a state of economic collapse and running concentration camps for the Uyghur minority. None of that. He didn't have time for any of that. He talked about the climate, and that just shows that all he wants is a climate agreement. Here's what he said. We have to come together as the two largest economies in the world to climate-proof the world.
Right.
We're going to climate-proof the world. You know what we really need? We need to Biden-proof the world, and then the world would instantly get better. Like,
the world would be better if it were China-proof too. I mean, China doesn't care about the climate change because they already have a communist government.
That's right. Yeah, that, and it's a communist government that is happy to build a coal plant a week. They don't give a crap. They'll sign any agreement and they'll do none of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we know that. But Biden, the reason why Biden has to be the priority and then will China-proof the world is he is trying to invite the CCP to kind of run the United States. I mean, he's compromised, right? And that's actually a great lead into what we're going to talk about here in a minute. But there were a couple other quick hits I wanted to get. So here's some news out of Washington, D.C. Crime is so bad in the District of Columbia, where the District of Columbia, the crime is so bad in D.C. that Congress itself is distributing tips to their elected officials, their staffers on Capitol Hill to avoid being carjacked in the Capitol. And this is a place that is
what kind of
police. What's that?
What kind of tips? Carry a whistle, or get yourself a shotgun, man.
It looks like they are. Let's see. What are they saying here? They travel in pairs to avoid getting mugged. Not wearing jewelry on public transportation. Well, that eliminates Nancy Pelosi, who probably hasn't ridden on public transportation since 1964. And leaving no valuables visible in one's parked car to avoid attracting thieves, like pink hammers. Don't leave any of those in your car because that might get some interest. Let's see. Suggested leaving space between cars at red lights, so you have the ability to flee. Minimizing time on mobile phone while walking to limit distractions. That's impossible because it's all you go look around the Capitol. This is all people are doing. They're on phones or they're doing this. No one is actually talking to each other anymore there. But it's a city of over just 500,000 people, and 5,000 cars have been stolen this year already. 5,000. That's 20 to 25 a day. 700 of those have been the result of carjackings where people were viciously thrown out of their cars and thrown into the streets as the criminals drive away. And this is a city, by the way, that has seen homicides up 28%, on pace to reach the highest level in 20 years. Robberies, meanwhile, up 67%. And residents have testified to increasingly driving for short distances due to fear of going outside. This is the nation's capital. And, the Congress has a lot of power to manage policy in the nation's capital, should it not accommodate the purpose of governance there. But instead, the D.C. mayor has decided cashless bail, defunding police, scaling back. And there's no city that has more police forces in the world than Washington, D.C. Remember we were there for the inauguration?
Yeah, I remember we were there for for that, and then I was there in that following December, and I was walking around Washington D.C. right by the White House. My wife and I, Karen and I, were walking around at 1:00 in the morning, which is not probably a smart thing to do in a large downtown American city, but there was a police car on every block.
There are police cars everywhere.
Yeah, because it was the whole BLM thing time, and all that stuff was still going on. So we were pretty safe.
So here's what happened, by the way, just a little backstory. In 2022, the DC City Council passed some crime policies that, let's see, it says here, that the City Council, a guy named Style, went on to remind people that Congress's override of the DC criminal code reform cards would have lessened the penalties for violent crimes, eliminated most mandatory sentences. DC Mayor Muriel Bowser vetoed the measure, but the City Council overruled her, which forced Congress to intervene. But we look back to earlier in the year, and we actually nullified the 2022 law that would have made the crime policies in Washington, D.C. even worse. And many of my Democrat colleagues in the House voted against that. So crime is so bad in D.C. that at the end of the day, Joe Biden found himself forced to vote with us. I know, that's how bad it is.
Yeah.
The Senate voted 81-14 in favor of the penalty lessening plan. That means they got some Republicans in there, which is bad. The House passed the block by a 250-173 margin. Biden ultimately signed a measure to block the reform. So this is just, I don't know. It's just kind of, and the thing is, none of those crime statistics even come close to Portland's.
No, they don't. No. Washington D.C.'s a walk in the park compared to Portland.
Exactly. Now, Pennsylvania Governor Shapiro. This is the other quick hit. These aren't even quick, I guess. Governor Shapiro, who was elected last fall, announced today that they're going to have something called automatic voter registration. That sounds really familiar. Said, look, this is common sense. You already provide proof of identity, residency, age, and citizenship at the DMV. All the information we need to register you to vote. He forgot to mention force you to register to vote, or register to vote a bunch of people who don't care about being registered to vote. Right. He announced this on National Voter Registration Day, which he's decided is no longer a voluntary act. And he's very proud to announce this. And we know what the effect in Oregon has been, which has been what?
Well, there's tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of ballots floating around that don't belong to anybody legitimately.
Some of whom left the state, right? They just left, and the voter rolls don't. I mean, people are getting ballots that are sent to them at an old address as well as a new address.
Yeah.
Because they figure, well, hey, we can do whatever we want. We can mail a gazillion ballots out, and ballot custody. Who knows what happened? But Stephen Miller with America First Legal reacted to the announcement by opining that the system would likely include meaningful efforts to determine eligibility, and I can promise you there will be no citizenship verification. Stephen Miller used to be the Trump campaign chief advisor on immigration and customs enforcement issues.
Yeah.
So he's right. So this is what is going to happen there. They have vote by mail in Pennsylvania. They have Democrats in charge, and it's a swing state. It has been the last several elections, but this might end that because it certainly did end it in Oregon to a great extent for presidential races, didn't it?
Well, yeah. If you have undue influence over the outcome of election, you can certainly take yourself out of swing state category.
Yeah, because now you can mail ballots to people who have no idea that there's an election and will probably just throw them in the garbage for some guy to come get. In fact, I think the perfect fusion of all the dystopian crap that's going on in our is for people in Philadelphia who are on fentanyl to get paid to go salvage ballots out of garbage cans in exchange for
Fentanyl.
getting another fix. That's right. Yeah, that's where we're heading, folks. I just thought we'd open up the show with that.
Yeah, registering people to vote is, I mean, people should opt in to register to vote. I mean, it should be something that the individual does. You should register to vote. You shouldn't have an agency or some other entity registering you to vote on your behalf. I mean, we see it in Oregon. We see this huge non-affiliated, the NAVs or unaffiliated, I'm not sure which it is, but this voter block has just swelled the largest voting block in Oregon. And as people are continuing to be added to that category via the automatic voter registration, the turnout percentage for that voting block continues to drop. These people are not interested in performing a civic duty. They're not interested in voting. And they don't vote. They just don't vote.
They don't. And they also, frankly, are pretty uninformed when they are receiving ballots.
One would think if they're not interested in that, they're probably not interested in making a great choice. I would say that the vast majority, 80, 90% of the people that cast a ballot are uninformed, and many are misinformed. People
tend to be the least informed because they didn't even think. They didn't I'm not registering to vote. I don't care about that crap.
Yeah, I mean, they're literally, if they do vote their ballot, they're literally going to go down, and if they see a name that they recognize, they're gonna color in the circle by that name. I mean, that's, They'll
look at the picture. They'll think, who did I get I got crap in the mail from them. I recognize that.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be let's examine whether that border policy is causing fentanyl to stream into my state, so that guy who's pooping on the sidewalk in front of my house can get his supply of fentanyl and keep doing it. That is the analysis that very few will get around to if they are in this least interested and least willing to vote category anyway. But speaking of that, and we were talking about, the big guy getting his 10%. The House of Representatives has scheduled the first Biden impeachment inquiry hearing. Now, this is an inquiry. This is not a hearing about impeachment itself, but to get to the truth about what's going on. And of course, the media has gone apoplectic because this is so unfair to Joe Biden. It is totally baseless, as we've been told by the media, which is totally different than when they decided that they needed to actually impeach Donald Trump with almost no hearings, and because they'd already decided that he was going to be obviously in need of being impeached. And it was a political move all along. This one actually does seem to be a deliberate effort to get at the truth. Kevin McCarthy is the first one who reported that this is going to happen, and it's starting next week. James Comer, Oversight Chairman, House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan, Ways and Means Committee Chairman Jason Smith are leading this, and they're going to delve into the Hunter's foreign business dealings, but they are also going to get at the bank accounts of these guys. And as this goes, they're also uncovering the cover-up, which is interesting because you know how there was the whistleblower back in 2015, somebody, not a whistleblower, but an informant who contacted the FBI, very credible person, told them that there were two $5 million bribes that this informant said he was told directly by a Ukrainian oligarch, that this oligarch made these bribes in order to get rid of the prosecutor was going after the company that Hunter Biden had been hired to work for, and that Joe Biden bragged later that this is exactly what happened. He got rid of the SOB, as he put it.
Right.
Turns out there was a second informant in this case, but the FBI shut this guy down. And the ex-agent, who's a whistleblower, Tim Thibault, said, it shocked me a bit because the purpose of a confidential informant is to support a case. And he doesn't understand why they would actually shut down an informant when they were supposed to be conducting something called an investigation. And I think we know that the answer to that is the whole thing was corrupt. Thibault did not further identify the source of his testimony, but best-selling author Peter Schweitzer, who really digs into this stuff, told Just the News that he believes the person described in the transcript, based on past comments from Thibault in the New York Times, recently suggested the FBI had received information in the Hunter Biden case from a right-wing author. So they're thinking that it's probably Peter Schweitzer who was uncovering some of this, but that that this information was about criminality was provided in the fall of 2020. And at that point, the FBI was complete deep state lockdown mode. And but this is factual information that was provided. And so the Democrats are trying to make this go away too. But I like the fact that they are pursuing an inquiry. What's interesting, and I know that Dick Morris, he's the guy that is like wrong almost all the time. Sometimes he makes a good point, and he said squeamish Republicans are scared of impeachment. And you and I have talked about that. That's a problem, isn't it?
That is a problem. Yeah. The standard Republican line in D.C. has been, if we impeach them, we won't get reelected. Has always been, it's the same thing with the damn continuing resolution, the budget. If we shut down the government, we won't get reelected. If we impeach somebody, we won't get reelected. And it just shows you, that they're far less interested in carrying out the affairs of government on behalf of the people than they are about getting reelected.
Well, and remember how the Democrats conducting their severely streamlined impeachments, which they knew weren't going to probably get through the Senate anyway.
No, they're not.
Remember how those prevented Joe Biden from succeeding in the 2020 election? Me neither. I don't remember that either. And so this is why I think we're at a crossroads.
And actually, even in 2022, Democrats didn't do horrible.
No.
They didn't do horrible. So, I'm not sure that's a great argument. But, the fact of the matter is if and when the Democrat machine, whatever the machine is, I'm not sure who the machine is. I'm not sure if it's still the Clinton machine. I don't know if it's the Obama machine. I don't know if it's a Soros machine, but whoever who's running the machine, the minute that they decide that Joe's a liability and he's going to lose to any generic Republican, they'll impeach his ass. I mean, what better way?
Yeah, no, that's right. Well, I can tell you that there is one Republican who is completely zero squeamish, and that is Republican Representative Scott Perry. He was participating in a news conference that was covered on C-SPAN, and there's an excerpt that I just posted from LinkedIn. I don't know if everybody can access that, but I don't have another easy way to get at that. And what's fascinating about this is it's some British reporter, right? It sounds like it, probably the BBC or something like that. And she's just badgering them and saying, so this is completely baseless. So are you just doing this for revenge? And she just keeps talking over him and blah blah blah, and he just cuts in and absolutely scorches her, just scorches her, and rattles off in the matter of about, I don't know, about 35 or 40 seconds, all the stuff that she is ignoring and not reporting that are completely obvious. Like, we've got the bank accounts. We can see that the money went someplace here. And this is what we're going to get to the bottom of in terms of Joe Biden. We have the meetings, the information about the meetings. What it is becoming is it's going from enough evidence to indict, which is what an impeachment really is, to a preponderance of the evidence now. And now they're going to move closer and closer to what I think could be, and is not necessary for impeachment at all, proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And Democrats, here's another byproduct of this. It's not only to get this information out and put it in front of the American people, make it part of the 2024 election cycle, the president. It's also that every member of Congress is, they'll get a chance to vote on whether or not they think this amounts to something, right? That is great, because I want a bunch of Democrats saying, I don't care if he got bribed $10 million.
Or 20.
Right? And I want a bunch of senators to sit there and say the same thing. And by the way, the Democrats are defending 23 seats. 1/3 of the Senate is up every 2 years out of 100. There are 10 Republican seats being defended and 23 Democrat seats being defended. And I want every one of them going up there and casting a vote on whether or not they think they're going to just, whitewash this and make it go away for a guy who, frankly, can't even complete sentences and doesn't know where he is and lies all the time.
Oh, yeah. He's been lying for 50 years.
I know. He didn't
lying in public. He's been lying in public and on record for 50 years.
The only thing he's got is the lack of cognition that might result in people thinking he might forget that he lied. That's his only defense now. But being a vegetable is not a great argument for remaining as president.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It worked for Fetterman.
Well, that's for U.S. Senate. But yeah, having said that, there's a few more.
We feel bad for him. He's got, what's he has nothing.
No, he can't even read from, neither he nor Biden can actually successfully read something from a teleprompter, and both of them don't know where they are sometimes. But Fetterman honestly has a medical excuse for why he can't. He's just got some condition. I just don't think he can function as a U.S. senator, but he's also not in charge of like 5,000 nuclear weapons and whether or not you live or die. That's actually not his job, but I don't know whose job it is. Like you said, I don't know who's in charge. Now, there's
Lori says when he forgets we have technology that proves he's lying. One thing I've always held is that politics attracts narcissists and sociopaths. And it's just a special kind of person who can stand up in front of a camera to potentially millions of people and just outright lie.
I know.
And then when someone says, hey, look, this is a lie, you go, no, you're wrong. It's weird. It's weird. And the weird thing about it is it works a lot, I don't get either.
Well, Joe Biden doesn't even have to make his own arguments, although he does so, and he does poorly with that. But the media is the one who's explaining everything. I talk to people all the time that have no idea what state this guy's in.
No.
He's old and slow, but they actually don't know.
No. And most of the time, when you're talking to people who aren't as dialed in as the people that watch this show, and maybe you and I and the others other people in the circle that we run with, you notice they don't have a lot of detail. They have a sound bite when you talk about politicians. There's a sound bite, and they don't really know the details of anything. I had a conversation today with two younger guys who are both both on our side of the aisle. But they didn't know a lot about stuff.
No, I think they know talking points, but as soon as you get into a conversation with them that goes 1 inch deep, then they're just like, then they just go into, well, you're just a MAGA Republican, or something like that, where they just try to denigrate you because they don't actually know how to make arguments.
Are you going to write Trump in jail?
Yeah, what about Trump? And it's like, so the guy in the White House is the one who was bribed. You don't think that's a matter for Congress?
It seems to me that, it'd be a slam dunk. I mean, I assume that at some level, most everyone in DC is accepting some sort of remuneration.
Yeah.
For the things that they help to pass or not to pass. I assume that's the way things work.
Well, on last night,
there's a lot of levels on that. But when you're just flat out selling shit to foreign countries, hostile countries for money, it should be a slam dunk. Hey, sorry, Joe, you just, sorry to have to end your career this way, but you're going to jail.
Yeah. Yeah. And last night, a pretty good phrase came up. It's if politicians stop taking bribes, they would starve to death.
Well, they'd have to fly private or fly commercial, wouldn't they?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, Gerald, I haven't seen Gerald before, but he asked where Larry and his knowledge is. Remember Larry? He was the troll we had last week.
I know. Come on, Larry, come back. It was fun having you.
It was fun. I didn't block you, so you could come back, Larry.
Yeah.
Because I like the I like your knuckle dragging, window licking, crown eating take on politics.
Well, it's a lot like at a comedy club, when a heckler becomes the tool that the comedian to expand the envelope of humor, and then the heckler gets really pissed off.
Yeah.
It's you, and it's like everybody's laughing, No, I think that is so true. Speaking of bribes in Ukraine and all the stuff swirling around that country, Representative Donald.
Is that just a big laundering operation or what? I mean,
they've done everything to give us that impression, and you'd think they'd probably be more focused on the fact that their country is been invaded and occupied by a hostile force. That would be a top of the list thing. But you know what? I bet they actually cannot turn in the goods on Biden now, or, politics matter more than the fate of Ukraine to Biden any day of the week, right? And the Democrats. Yeah. So then they'd have no friends in D.C. But it turns out they don't have a lot of friends right now. Byron Donalds, Florida Republican, said he insisted that there was neither support nor money to accommodate the demands by the Ukrainian president for additional funding for the war.
$24 billion.
Yeah, this is a lot of money. You and I, we drive on these stupid roads with potholes that are 20 years behind the amount of traffic on them. And instead, we're going to go over there and make sure that everything's working there, that make sure their border is secure, while our border is an absolute sieve for fentanyl and human trafficking. And not that we can't solve more than one problem, but at this point, people are fatigue in Congress. And you know what a president who could actually make a speech instead of slurring their words and talking about climate proofing the world would do? They would explain this to the American people, and then maybe Congress would say, okay, I get it, right? And so do the American people. He can't do that. He's never done that. He has never made a speech where he explained all this stuff because he can't. And he can never do a press conference because that would be a shit show for them. I mean, they'd spend the next 3 weeks trying to fix all of this and repair diplomatic relations and watch.
They'd have to wave it off. No, we're done. We're done.
They have to bring the bunny out, Yeah. the press conference.
Shepherd's hook.
Exactly.
You heard he said.
And it is a serious matter what's going on in Ukraine. I understand there's a lot of
It is. But if you wanted to, if you felt that way about Ukraine, that they absolutely needed to be defended from this big, bad, mean invading force, you would send troops there and fight them, right? I mean, you would declare a war. And I get proxy wars. I understand proxy wars, but I can't help but think that this is just a big money laundering operation.
Well, and you would make an argument that this is somehow less expensive than actually sending American troops there. But, all along, they've played this pussyfooting game, too. They've drugged this out over a year and a half, only getting just enough weaponry to not win and die in bloody batches. So even if they say, well, what we want to do is win as quickly as possible, they're not doing that either. Which
no,
suggests
no,
what you said is true.
I mean, if they believed all the rhetoric that they're putting out, they would send, they'd send in everything.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, that's the way you would do it. The way Bush did into Iraq, and we've seen over and over and over again. Now, and I get that supporting someone to fight an enemy. I get that, but I just think it's a big money laundering operation. And I've come to the conclusion, I think most foreign aid is. I mean, what better way to take $1 billion or $100 million of United States taxpayer money, send it to some shithole, corrupt government, and ask for some of that back? I mean, that's just easy.
Well, look how long we sent loads of money to Pakistan, like billions and billions a year. And yet, when we capture terrorists, they were trained in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Not in Afghanistan. They were trained in Pakistan.
Yeah.
And then we found out that they were actually, we had guys that were just extensions of the intelligence services in Pakistan, including Osama bin Laden, who was there, and they knew it. And they were very upset when we killed them because we didn't do it with their permission, apparently. But they were harboring a bunch of people who were literally organizing death squads to kill Americans. And we sent them like $3 billion, $2 or $3 billion a year.
Yeah. I feel bad for the Ukraine. I feel bad for any country that's invaded by another hostile nation. But I don't know who the good guys and I don't know who the bad guys are there. And it's just not my war. I don't see that the United States has any interest there. And I get fighting enemies on foreign soil rather than fighting them on our own. But I don't think it's worked out well for us over the last 100 years. And I think it's time to stop. And what is it? What are we at now? $80 billion?
I thought it was closer to 100, but I also know this. We don't have a commander in chief that has the ability to explain this to the American people, which is absolutely essential. Whether we were sending troops over there or just sending weapons or the hard-earned taxpayer money, or frankly, as Representative Donalds points out, to be blunt, we're running a $2 trillion deficit. Any money we give to Ukraine, we're borrowing from our future.
Yeah.
The facts, and those are the truth.
Yeah.
And
we're
so
paying interest on it.
And we're paying interest on it. Right? Borrowing money, sending it to Ukraine. And frankly, I don't even see that we've been trying to win it. But I also know that...
No, we're not trying to win it. If we were trying to win it, we'd send over the whole shebang.
Yes. And it would be over. And it would
it would drag out for 20 years and cost us
maybe, yeah.
$6 trillion of laundered money.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's the argument for it being cheaper, but I actually think that we have a huge
cheaper money laundering.
It's cheaper wasting of money. Yeah. Oh, you froze, David. There you go. We got. Apparently, somebody didn't like it and is jamming his Starlink there, but he'll be back in a second.
I'm back. Yeah, I froze. What happened to me? Sorry.
It's funny when you come back, it does this sort of hyper version of you returning. Hyperlapse.
It's kind of a Tourette's thing. Digital Tourette's.
Digital Tourette's. But here's the biggest problem of all, and this is why this is the money launderer in chief, the guy who's being investigated for literally taking bribes from oligarchs from the same country, is going to argue that we can trust that the money's being spent wisely. Really? I mean, you could even agree with everything, but the guy delivering the message has zero credibility at this point. It's laughable. Biden can't do it. And he doesn't have anybody. He's going to march Kamala out there. Kamala went to Poland right before the said, we have got Putin deterred with economic sanction threats. That's a person who's even less serious than Biden, if that's actually possible. So, this is where we're at as a country right now. But let's transition away from Biden and the Brandon shit show and transition to Oregon. There's been a huge backlash against another Schmidt show, actually. There's a major push to so-called fix Measure 110. The media is spinning this as making drug possession a crime again, rather than getting the problem under control. It's a joint effort that is being funded by Phil Knight, Tim Boyle of Nike and Columbia Sportswear, respectively, and includes Dan Levy of the People for Portland. He's a political consultant, a progressive political strategist named Paige Richardson, who I don't know, a former Republican state lawmaker, Max Williams, who used to run the penal system under Kulongoski, and Washington County District Attorney Kevin Barton. So apparently there's a big money effort to get something to the ballot and force a fix, which might force the Democrats to do something about it in the legislature so they can control what happens. But they have refused.
Wait a minute. That's the will of the people.
Yeah,
legislature can't change that. That was a citizen initiative. That's the will of the people.
Yep. Well, apparently the Portland Business Journal is lamenting, and this is apparently an entity that is supposed to report on interests that business might have. And business loves, of course, the fentanyl urban camping all over the place and the crime wave. They love it. That's why they're leaving, actually, Oregon and certainly Portland in droves. But here's the headline from the Business Journal. Backers of proposal to recriminalize street drugs in Oregon make their case. Recriminalize street drugs. Like it's a huge mistake. Don't do that. Don't do that, because it was much better that you simply surrendered to the drug cartels. That was a smart idea right there. And that's worked out great, hasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think Oregon legislature, which is controlled by the Democrats, probably are going to miss a great opportunity here. And the opportunity is they can keep drugs legal for the user. That's what but they have the opportunity, like they did with rent controls, is they set a minimum price for fentanyl. And then a lot of people can't afford it. And so they stop doing drugs and they go get a job, and then they can live in a house. That's
right. Actually, they should establish a very high minimum wage also for the drug dealers, like make it $42 an hour minimum wage. And they can't be paid on commission. So if you overregulate it and start to put in all the things they put into place to destroy the regular legal private economy, the drug business will be out of business in no time.
Well, actually, if you took over the distribution of the drugs, if the state did that, then the drugs would be 3 to 10 times more expensive. They wouldn't be as good. The supply wouldn't be as good, and people would just not be able to get as many drugs because they couldn't afford them, or they kept running out because we live in a state that spent $500 million and couldn't build a website.
That's right. And all the drug dealers would stop dealing drugs, and instead they will file bully complaints and lawsuits and make their living that way instead, because there's lawyers that are happy to take those cases. See, we've figured it out, and they're so slow to the uptake now.
Measure 110 is not the problem. It's just, it's a host of other things like the price of drugs. Yeah. It's just too damn cheap,
That's right. And, but Oregon leaders, so-called leaders, which are all Democrats, they're in a different place. Here's what they've said. They said, we are failing our community. Oregon leaders convened at a behavioral health forum. And that by we, they mean you, me, and everybody, because apparently somehow we did this, even though they're in charge. They just want to spread the blame as broadly as possible and say, but we have to do better. They say this is not a single jurisdiction issue. So it's all this projection crap that they do. And of course, they call it behavioral health because they can't call it drug addiction. Behavioral health means that they've got a problem caused by their behavior that's hurting their health. They make it so that most people who don't, like all these non-affiliated voters that have been created that were forced to be registered, that have no idea what's going on and they don't know what causes anything.
Right.
They hear behavioral health and they're like, they don't even know what it is and they don't care. They don't know that the guy pooping on the sidewalk is apparently having a behavioral health crisis. And so, but the problem is, as usual, that they don't have.
We all do.
Yes, exactly. The problem is that they just don't have a home, and apparently that caused them to overdose. Is that they don't have a home,
Yeah,
and what they need is more money and more time, which we hear every time this comes up. And they've come up with an even better plan, by the way, for the schools. And this one's going to make the national news. Mark my words. It's been reported by the Willamette Week, but it falls straight into the harm reduction, which is all harm, no reduction. It's schools. The Portland public schools have come up with this brilliant idea. They're going to give special drug disposal kits to all Portland high schoolers because they want to make sure that expired or unneeded prescriptions and illegal substances of all kinds are properly disposed of. Because apparently they're perfectly okay with the fact that these illegal substances and expired and unneeded prescriptions are everywhere. The school district has handed out 14,000 doTERRA drug disposal kits to students. They're 8 bags that contain a carbon mixture that, when mixed with water, can destroy up to 45 pills, such as highly toxic fentanyl pills. 6 ounces of liquid or 6 patches. It can destroy weed gummies, fentanyl, meth, coke. They can all go in one bag. Just no needles, of course. Find somewhere else to put the needles because, kids got all these needles at home. And then the whole kit can just go in
the needles are free. So, what kid doesn't grab a handful of free needles every time he walks by the free needle stand?
Exactly. I mean, who wouldn't do that? And guess who the brilliant people are that have purchased and are providing these bags? It's Multnomah County. The same people who bought the straws and the foil to hand out to fentanyl addicts, and then later claimed that it was all one big mistake and we had no idea we were doing this.
Yeah. I'm telling you, Oregon Democrats can stop this. All they need to do is put a tax on fentanyl, a big tax, so it's too expensive. It might help to put expiration dates on them so that some of the druggies, if they got one and go, oh crap, this one's a month old, I better take it somewhere and dispose of it.
That's right. That's right. Actually, what this is all leading to is a government fentanyl, or it's going to be like the OLCC. They'll have special fentanyl that you can go to.
Why not? The OLCC does such a great job at alcohol and marijuana. Why not give them the fentanyl thing too?
Exactly. Why are we wasting time on all these solutions when we could just have the government take it over?
Yeah, because if the OLCC regulated it, then minors couldn't get it, right? Because minors can't get alcohol or marijuana because of the OLCC, and you'd have expiration dates on there. Every fentanyl tablet would have to be tested to make sure there's no impurities or pesticides are in there. So yeah, I mean, I think it would work out
by the DFQ, the Department of Fentanyl Quality. They'll just be in charge of making sure that only good fentanyl is used, not the bad fentanyl.
Yeah. The heroin dealers would support that legislation. You could probably get some of the Democrats could probably get bags of cash from the heroin cartels because really fentanyl has just decimated the heroin business in Oregon. And you remember when we just had junkies? We just had drunks and junkies on the street. It seemed almost manageable. I think the real scourge here is those damn fentanyl dealers, and we just need to I think we need to, legalize the distribution and then heavily regulate it, and it'll all go away.
There you go. There you go. And limit the hours that they're allowed to work without being paid triple overtime. I think that's
right.
That's
right.
So, speaking of measures, Measure 114 has the court trial in Harney County for Measure 114 has started this week. And so the whole thing's being heard right now. The debate has started. And by a debate, I mean the two sides, the lawyers arguing each side of the case. And the way this is framed by the Statesman Journal is the Statesman Journal, is I just used Lars's phrase. Is it a threat to gun rights or an act of public protection? And that's what's going back and forth right now. The two Harney County gun owners are the chief plaintiffs in the case against Governor Kotek, Attorney General Ellen Rosenblum, Oregon State Police Superintendent Case Cotting are on the other side. And there's 6 days of arguments. They started yesterday. Judge Robert Ratio, the circuit court judge, the law is completely on hold right now. However, if this case does not turn out to strike it down or find it unconstitutional, this is all they're working on. They're not working on, is the process like impossible to implement or likely to completely violate your rights. They are only allowed to decide up, down, does Oregon's constitution permit it or not. There's already a federal judge, district judge here in Oregon who ruled that it was totally fine. And it only passed, by the way, with 50.6% of the voters. It was like, 35 or 50,000 votes out of several million, like 2 or 3 million. Yeah. And so they're arguing this back and forth. Portland, a place that you want to take all of your advice from, is seeking to become what they call a, quote, friend of the court status in defense of Measure 114. And we just covered how great things are going in Portland and how wise they've been with all their policies. Why wouldn't you want them on your side defending Measure 114? I'm actually for this because I am encouraging somebody who has so little credibility and is actually engulfed in gun violence caused by criminals, not guns, in a city where the people experiencing this crime wave are desperate to get firearms to defend themselves, which is the purpose, of course, as we know, of the Second Amendment, and actually to defend it from a government that doesn't want you to have your rights, which is true of in both cases.
That must be why the city of Portland wants to get involved.
Yeah.
They want to make sure that their residents have access to guns.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, and they've set records with homicides. So, but they want to take legal guns away from people. And I think we should make sure that's clear for everyone that you will soon. They want to make sure they want to solve the crisis in Oregon of homicides caused by illegal guns by taking away legal guns, which could stop homicides. Yep. It's a brilliant strategy.
Always has been. Has been. It's never worked wherever they've tried it. I mean, people are getting killed in Chicago, and that's impossible because guns are illegal in Chicago. But
that's right.
Every day, somebody probably got shot, maybe killed in Chicago while we were doing this show.
While we're talking about this topic, in fact, and
in a city where you can't own a gun.
Yeah, there's guns everywhere, and really the only people that are inhibited from owning a gun are people who follow the law, which are also not known as criminals. That's a different group. Sherman County Sheriff Brad Lowry actually wrote an op-ed in the East Oregonian saying, we're close to losing our Second Amendment rights. He's trying to raise people's attention that that's what's at stake in this case. So hopefully we can get people's attention on this. We'll keep bringing you updates. And by the way, sign the constitutional carry petition because like we saw in Mexico, somebody might think that your right to have a firearm is unconstitutional. It could happen in this case here in Oregon, or the governor could just simply issue an executive order to declare a health emergency and then abolish your right to the Second Amendment. So let's make that a point of reinforcing that in the Constitution of Oregon. I think that Joel Pulowski there in Marion County, if this case in Harney County turns out to say that it is constitutional, Measure 114, then he's going to have more people signing that petition than he's going to know what to do with. And that's what has to happen. So let's stay tuned on that. Last topic here is a funny one. It's a sad one, but let's laugh instead of cry. Oregon passed a law which essentially removes the reading, writing, and math requirements to help people of color who, of course, don't need to read, write, or do math. I thought it was the most racist thing I ever heard, but this picture of a white governor, Kate Brown, signing this is the meme that is being supplied everywhere. But it's actually real, and it's getting worse because so many students failed classes during the pandemic, the state has decided to take another look at what they call equity grading. They're quietly reviving what they call in this article, a reform-minded method of grading focused on how well students master specific academic skills while de-emphasizing other traditional methods like turning in assignments on time, behaving well in class, and completing well extra credit. I think it's like completing any assignment, actually. It's a proficiency-based, what they say, or equitable grading system. And this is in a state where we've managed to achieve new lows in academic achievement nationwide, comparably speaking. We're near the bottom in the country in all these categories, including high school graduation rates. But the solution that education experts in Oregon have to the massive failure rates is to lower the standards so no one can fail. And that'll apparently help people of color who are going to be much better off being unable to do math, read, and write.
The poster child for the institutional racism of low expectation.
Exactly. It's funny how it's mostly white progressives that are in favor of making sure people of color don't have to read, write, and do math. And when you ask people of color parents, they feel differently about this. And I think this is part of the demographic shift. We talked about it last night on the show with Dave Huguenot. It's happening. People are moving in the direction because they've had it with this crap. And it's only people who aren't affected by it in wealthy school districts with high property tax proceeds that don't care. Representative Tracy Kramer of Gervais, they're just north of Salem. Jervis, yes. North of Salem, former Marion County eminary here, the other guy. Thank you for the correction. She is calling on the State Board of Education to remove consideration of suspending the quote essential skills learning requirement for another 4 years. That's what they're going to do. They're going to take something they required called the essential learning skills assessments and suspend them so we won't actually know how bad people are doing. So we can't fix the problem and we'll just pretend that there is no problem. And she is opposing that. She's a Republican state representative.
Well, I think all of these, these academic requirements really get in the way of the jobs program that the public schools have become. Teachers are just trying to get paid. They're trying to, get a nice retirement. The admin's doing the same stuff, and all these requirements for these kids. It seems like an undue burden. I would imagine that the Oregon Education Association would like to probably do away with the students because
they're getting in the way of actually just collecting a paycheck and having to do actual work, which results in student success. Student success is a real problem for
stress on the teachers and stuff that have to deal with kids that don't know things. I don't know. It seems to me that it would be better if we just got rid of all the children in the public schools and maybe let their parents figure out how to educate them. And that way, the admin, the administration, we might lose some jobs in janitorial. I don't know. But, that way the administrative state of the school districts and the OEA, I think everybody would just be a lot happier all the way around.
Yeah, I mean, the teachers could just show up to empty classrooms and safely smoke fentanyl together all day long.
Well, yeah, you could pretty much do anything. You could make your weird queer videos. You could do your whole thing and BLM posters and rainbows, and basically you could dress like you wished and just make TikTok videos all day long.
And then go out and join Antifa and burn Portland down. I mean, that's a full day right there.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, we've just solved every problem we encountered today, David, and had a laugh doing it. This has been a great show here today. Thanks for being on with me. Any last words of wisdom before we part for the evening?
You know what? I had a word of wisdom, and then I forgot what it was. I think I'd actually developed a good one for the show, and then life got in the way, and I don't remember things as well as I used to, and now I can't remember what it is. But if you come back Friday, there's a good chance I may have one.
Stay tuned, folks. We're going to have 2 more shows this week. We've got Sonny and Don tomorrow night on the Captive Audience, and then David will be back, and I think Sonny will be back too, because I think the roundup is over. So she'll be back, and so stay tuned for the next 2 episodes of the Captive Audience. And thank you for watching us here tonight. And please do share this with somebody, anybody, and you'll find that they'll greatly appreciate it, because you can't get this kind of news and commentary anywhere else here in the state of Oregon. Thank you again for watching, and we will see you tomorrow night on the Captive Audience.